Now, a couple of years ago, the fall of Kabul, we understood that the Taliban, who we'd fought for 20 years, had taken back the city and the country. It was easy to understand. But I'll have a bet that many of you watching, listening to this, have been hearing about this outbreak of war in Sudan over the last couple of days, trapped British nationals, many other nationalities there too. And I wonder whether you've got an earthly clue as to who is fighting whom. I suspect in most cases not. Don't be embarrassed about it, which is why we've got Colonel Richard Kemp on, Telegraph columnist and former British commander in Afghanistan, who knows about this subject. Now, obviously, Rich, you know, historically, Sudan, British colony, Lord Kitchener of Khartoum, all of those things. But what is actually happening, please? Who's on what side?
I think Kitchener would find it hard to recognise what's going on now, but essentially the government of Sudan, the temporary government of Sudan, is headed by General Duran, who is also the chief of staff of the armed forces. And his kind of henchman was a guy called Hemeti. And Hemeti also commanded a kind of militia force, part of the government as well, called the Rapid Support Forces. And Hemeti has turned on Duran, and he's used his significant rapid support forces to attempt to bring down Duran and to take over the government himself. And that fighting has now been going on for about a week between those two rival factions within Sudan. And it's worth noting, by the way, that supporters of both of these two generals is the Wagner Group, the Russian Wagner Group, which has been so active in Ukraine, which is probably backing a bit more the rebels than they were backing the chief of staff, the government forces. But they've got their murky hands in there as well. OK, so it's a split effectively within the military and within the government in Sudan. The last figure I saw was about 400 people killed so far. Would that sound right to you? Yeah, I think probably more than that's probably the figure we're getting, but I would guess it'll be quite a bit more than that, and probably a huge number more wounded as well.
Yeah. And the remarkable thing, looking at all of this, is that other nationalities, the French, the Dutch, the Italians, the Spanish, they've managed to organise air transport. Yeah, we've got our diplomats and their families out, but those other European countries have managed to fly out many hundreds of their own nationals stuck there. To my knowledge, up until yesterday, the British government hadn't even communicated with them. How many Brits do you think are trapped there?
Well, the figures vary between about 2,000 and 4,000 British, which is a fraction of the about 16 to 18,000 Americans that are thought to be trapped there and have been told by their president that there's no chance of them being got out. But I don't think we should be overcritical of the government here, because I've no doubt whatsoever that they're making the best efforts they can to attempt some kind of rescue operation for these citizens that are remaining. It's very, very difficult, as is, of course, difficult for other countries who have had maybe a bit more success early on, because the people are scattered across Khartoum, they're scattered across other parts of the country. Internet communications are out for most of the time. It's hard to keep tabs on where people are and who they are. So it's a hugely complicated operation. It could be attempted, but of course the government will have to make a judgment as to how dangerous it's going to be, both for the hostages and also for the troops, a large number of troops involved.
Now, we have got SAS forces out there who, of course, were involved in helping to get the British diplomats and their families out. What is the continuing role of the SAS in Sudan? And don't they find themselves in a very difficult, dangerous position?
Well, it's what the SAS is for, to overcome difficulties and to face danger. And they do it very, very competently, in my experience. Yes, of course, it's a tough mission for them. What they'll be doing, of course, now is two things, I think. One is to be reconnoitring to establish how best to carry out a rescue, to try and identify where as many people are as they can, and at the same time to be poised if British citizens are taken hostage, for example, by one faction or the other, possibility to be poised to carry out a surgical operation to rescue them. But that's basically, they're the eyes and ears on the ground of the British Armed Forces that might then launch a bigger scale operation.
Richard Kemp, thank you for coming on, discussing Sudan with us. I've no doubt we'll talk again over the course of the next few days. Many thanks indeed. And of course, many of us remember the SAS raid on the Iranian embassy in London. It was quite extraordinary.